Hello, and welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes, where we invite you to see the world through the lens of a real mental health and substance abuse therapist. Our goal is to create emotional growth. Through the medium of this podcast, we make you aware that this is not the delivery of a therapy service in any way, but we really do look for feedback and discussion. One of the ways we're trying to do that is on Facebook.com. You can like our page or our website, throughatherapist'seyes.com. We're trying to get the blog tab used a little bit more. More on that as we go along today, talking about technology probably. That's going to be our topic. Craig, we have a sponsoring agency, I guess, right?
We do. Metrolina Psychotherapy Associates in Belmont, North Carolina, serving children, adolescents, adults, and couples. Metrolina was founded by our own Chris Gazdick on July 1st of 2010. The agency strives to work with you towards emotional growth. You can find out more information about Metrolina at metpsych.com. That's metpsych.com, or call 704-461-8253 and speak to my friend DW.
Psych challenges our spelling ability, doesn't it?
It does. I always mess that up. I can't even say it, apparently.
I know, right?
Messing it up.
Try typing it in the computer all the time.
Every single time.
And what's funny, I do marriage counseling and stuff, and it's for some reason my tough word is marriage.
Really?
Spelling marriage, typing marriage, I can't tell you how many times I've hit the back.
I
hit the back button when I type it, man.
Really?
Like constantly.
Yeah.
So anyway, listen, guys, welcome, like I said, to the show. We've got another really cool show, I think, with something that really applies to us all and all the days that we deal with technology. This is going to be a little bit of a longer show. You're probably used to by now seeing us have shows for about a half hour. When we have a group person joining us, as we do today, we go a little bit longer, so you might chop it up on a drive to work and then a second half on the drive home from work. I'm very happy to say that we've got a guy that I've known for a long time. He has been personally so helpful to me. You know, in so many ways. He helps us out with a lot of technical stuff that we have at my day job at MetPsych, actually. And his name is Adrian Spickler. He's a senior system specialist with Deliver Plus. 25-plus years experience dealing with all this crazy crap of technology, man. Adrian, how you doing?
Hello. Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here, coming to you live and direct from the great state of West Virginia.
Gotta love West Virginia. That's where we met. And I remember, Adrian, when you got that job at Deliver Plus. You are still there. Love it.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? Long time.
It really is. And it's funny. We've got some ideas of some group discussions we're going to have with different people. But I've always looked around in my life. At mental health through the way that I see it, and when I started doing this podcast, I got the idea of really, knowing that there's so much emotion that goes into technology, and I thought of you, Adrian, in the way that you deal with emotions when you're dealing with what you do. I think it's really pretty cool, and hats off to you, man. You're good at what you do. You really are.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It is a lot of work trying to handle all aspects of any problem that comes up, and the psychology behind it is a big part of it.
It really is, and I've just always been impressed at how you've been mindful of that. How common is technology around us? The way I thought we'd start the show is kind of demonstrating some of that, Craig, with just the many examples that we have of technology invading or helping or being a part of our lives. Craig and Adrian, you guys, you got a cell phone? I see one sitting here on the table. Did you get something on your cell phone that was a little bit different than normal just yesterday? Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the presidential Amber Alert.
Yeah. Amber Alert.
Is that what it was? I don't know what it was, but I did get an alert from the president, apparently.
Did you get one, Adrian?
Yeah, I got one too. It was just a big warning saying, this was an alert with nothing behind it. I didn't even know it was from the president, except that you had brought that up.
Yeah, just now?
No, I mean before when we talked.
Yeah, it's funny because, how common this stuff is nowadays. I mean, we've got literally the President of the United States sitting here talking to us through the system on our personal cell phone. I mean, how crazy is that for technology development?
It's a great way to reach out to everybody quickly.
Yeah. It's just so common it's starting to get to. I might just kind of let you guys go back and forth a little bit here in a little bit, but to warm our audience up for the topic, I mean, obviously it's something that's a part of our lives in depth and deeply. I want to make a point from the start, see what you guys think, or if people have really realized. Adrian, I think you and I was talking to you in prep for the show and told you about this website. We'll have it on the show notes as always. I did a little digging and researching, and the progression of development is really staggering. So let me make this point. I'll try to go through these facts real quicker. There's a little bit of fun facts. By the way, we had a lot of meaty topics and deep topics and stuff. Not that this one isn't deep, but we're relaxing a little bit this week, right, Craig?
We are relaxing somewhat, yeah. We've covered some pretty heavy stuff. This is a fun one, and when you brought this idea up, I was like, yeah, we need to talk about technology anxiety,
Technology anxiety being a light topic. Oh, okay.
Well, maybe it's a heavy topic. It's going to be a fun discussion, I think, but it is definitely on the forefront of at least my mind.
More on that in a minute. So listen, the progression, and what I mean by that is how we progressed. I want you to pay attention as I rattle through this real quick. Some fun facts about how fast or slow things are developing or developed. So 10 million years ago, Adrian, do you know what the human beings did?
Lived in caves?
Well, we did, and we figured out how to use stone and wood and antlers and bones for tools 10 million years ago. You do the math, Craig. We're going to test your math ability. 1 to 2 million years ago, we went from tools. 1 to 2 million years ago, we discovered fire. That's a technological advancement. How long did it take us to go from tools to fire?
8 million years.
8 million years.
Wow.
Okay, that's pretty slow development. 25 to 50,000 BC, we first figured out, now that we got tools and fire, we figured out as human beings to wear clothes. Right? And then, now I'm going to ask you to do the math, see how quickly he could do this math, guys. This will be interesting. 4,000 BC, iron was used for the first time in decorative ornaments. So how long did it take us there?
How long did it take us to get there?
Yeah. That's a tough math question.
That is a tough math question. So, if it took us 20K, then I guess 16,000 years to
16,000 years.
Wearing clothes to using iron.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go and switch to the rapid development in the more recent time. 1928, we had the first electric refrigerator that was invented. In the 30s, this says the 30s. Peter Goldmark, evidently, with pioneers of the color television. I don't understand that, but I remember when I was a kid, we had black and white shows, and I don't know when TVs came.
Maybe that was only for the elite.
The elite. This is the earliest stuff that it got developed. Yeah, nobody had color TVs.
Maybe it wasn't
mass
produced until later,
40s or something like that.
Yeah.
I skipped Carl Benz from Germany. Many suggested he created the first true automobile. That was back in 1885. So that was just a wheel buggy, though. That wasn't Ford's combustion engine or whatever. But I'm going to speed this up. Look, from 1885 to 1928 is not that many years before we got the refrigerator, and then it's only 2 years later we got the color TV. You fast forward that a couple of decades, we went to the Soviet Union, Russia's Sputnik space satellite in 1957. So that's a pretty big advancement. But again, we're only talking about tens of years, not millions.
Yeah.
83, we got compact discs for all of us 80s guys and gals. Compact disc came out, CDs in 83. 95, what's that, a little more than a decade, Broadcast.com became the world's first online radio station in 95. A few years later, Apple figured out listening to music with iPods. 2010, we got 3D TVs. And it's just, those are only a couple years of development. And I've been in conferences talking about sexual things on the internet and all these apps and all these things that we have that are just blowing up. We cannot keep up with the development. 2017, they said quantum computing shows signs of becoming a practical technology. Adrian, I know you know what quantum computing is. What is quantum computing?
That's a great question. Yeah, quantum computers are a new way of making the main central processing unit, the CPU, the brain that's inside the chip. For all this time, chips have been created by what's called the integrated circuit, or IC. And now with quantum computers, it's going to be a different way of handling data. Rather than handling it like in an on or off state, that's generally what a switch does, is turns on or off. A quantum computer can handle multiple states, and so it can handle a broader range of data a lot faster. Quantum computers will be really good at encrypting data or decrypting data, which is a big thing when it comes to security coming in the future.
Craig, do you see why I love this guy? I understood about half of what you just said, man.
Yeah, me too. I fired up Instagram while he was talking.
That is amazing. But I mean, just think about
away.
that. I mean, just think about that for the audience. We don't need to know.
We can narrow it down to really, really fast computers. They're just going to just keep getting faster and faster and faster.
I mean, we got microchips. We're talking about putting stuff under people's skin, guys. We got microchips that go into dogs to track them. We've got locators on our phone. I mean, this technology stuff is overwhelming.
Yeah, the scary thing to me is artificial intelligence. I mean, if you get on the web and search for that, and some of the advances there, I mean, you got computers that can learn, and those kind of things are really scary. But
I don't want to give any.
It's huge right now because everybody's racing when it comes to Facebook or Google or Amazon. All these guys, whoever gets to AI first, can write their own ticket.
Wow,
yeah.
That's
There's
crazy.
I'll try to find this article and post it in the show notes. But there's a computer, artificial intelligence. They programmed the basic rules of chess into this thing, and within 4 hours, it was doing chess moves that had never been seen in the history of the game. And it learned on its own in 4 hours. It was like 10,000 years ahead of what humans know in chess, or something like that. I'll find the article and post it. But that kind of stuff's frightening, I think.
It's the word frightening is what sticks out onto me. Now, Adrian, I think I'm ahead of you in the show 100, right? We jumped in the fourth season. Well, it's for the audience that doesn't know, I recommend watching the 100 if you like science fiction at all on Netflix. It is an amazing show. But it plays, it's very, very graphic, by the way, very graphic violence and some sexuality in there, and some different things that might be appropriate for the younger population. But man, oh man, they play on your fear. And you talk about artificial intelligence, and that show really drums up some crazy situations and conundrums that you get into with AIs and stuff. I mean, I'm just going to check in with you guys right now with how you're feeling. I'm going to share the fact that I'm intimidated when I think of those types of things. You're talking about the chess programming and artificial intelligence. Adrian, you got people on the phone with computer problems. I mean, I feel intimidated by it, overwhelmed by it, powerless with it, helpless with it, control out of control.
It's really frightening. I mean, you think back when the Terminator came out. They had in the Terminator, man had made these machines that took over.
Yeah,
and basically
Skynet is active.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff now is becoming reality. And you could sit around and think about that thing and just think yourself into an overwhelming anxiety.
Technology anxiety is the name of the show.
Yeah, when you think about those things, you really have to use some of the tools we've talked about, like living in the present moment, because you can't sit around worrying about what could happen when it comes to things like that.
So how do we feel? I wrote some things down that come up with people. I mean, the show is named Anxiety, but like I said, when you get a technology problem, helplessness comes to my mind, out of control. The progression of changes. One of the reasons why I mentioned that, guys, is the idea of things changing is scary. I don't like change. I like things to remain the same, and I think that's pretty well held, feeling that people have. So what do you do when things are changing so rapidly that our laws can't keep up with it, our ethics in our professional organizations can't keep up with it? It's crazy. What do you feel like, Adrian? What do you see people feeling like? Craig, what do you feel like?
Well, for me, the first thing with technology is there is so much to try and keep up with. As someone in technology, it's very difficult just to try and stay abreast of all the new things that are coming out. But as a user, I like to just focus on what I need, what I use. It may not be necessary to learn about offshore drilling or where to plant seeds if you're not someone who does those things. So the first recommendation would be just focus on what you need, and I need to understand how to use my phone, or
Wow.
I need to understand how to browse the website to order the things that I need. So maybe narrow down the scope to just what helps you in the moment.
See, this is why I like talking on this show, because Adrian, you just absolutely nailed a fundamental emotion management strategy, right? You might not think of it as an emotion management strategy. I don't know if we talked about it yet, Craig, on the show, but I like to go through, and I won't today, but a whole Navy SEALs strategy of making things simple, break things down. And I honestly, Adrian, thank you, man. I never thought of, make it simple when it comes to technology. Break it down. You only need to know what you need to know. That's it. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Can you do that?
Absolutely. You guys were talking about progression and how things are going in the future. There's two things in there that I would like to point out. One is when it comes to technology, a common thing that's talked about is something called Moore's Law. Moore was a guy who predicted a long time ago that as computers develop, the number of integrated circuits on a microchip would double every 2 years.
Holy cow.
What this doubling means is, again, like we talked about before, is just things will be faster and faster and faster. And so every time it doubles, which we have absolutely kept to Moore's Law for the last 30 years, and the projection is we can continue, at least to the foreseeable future, that these machines will just be able to do so much more than even that they do now.
Wow, that's... for years I've loved to listen to you talk about these things, man. You're so knowledgeable about, what these things are, and you have a unique way of breaking them down to a simple and understandable point when you're working with me on a technical thing. I know. Let's diverge, and then I want to come back to actually letting you rock and roll, Adrian, with some tech support people and what they need to know. But I think I kind of even warned you guys. People on the show by now kind of know I like to catch people with some genuine moments. But I told you to think about a particular time that you had a technology thing that just really got to you. And immediately when I told them that, guys in the audience, Craig looked at me. What'd you say?
Logging into Skype tonight to record this show. Yeah.
45 minutes ago.
Exactly. Exactly.
But and Adrian, you did too, didn't you?
Yeah, I had trouble getting logged in as well. It's crazy how just the simplest things can be difficult, and in the frustration that can create. Luckily, we had enough time to deal with it. But you asked me about my biggest thing. It actually is quite similar to this idea of logging into Skype, in that I was doing a training class in Quebec, and I had about 30 managers coming into an office complex that I was going to be training them throughout the day. And these managers didn't have time to take a day out of their schedule and come deal with me. But they did anyway because they were told to. They didn't have a choice. But when they showed up, I didn't have the system set up in the training area because I was trying to get it all ready and I just didn't have enough time. And so literally for the first 2 hours of this class with 30 people who did not have time to be there, I didn't have something that I could even show them or even start the conversation. And so talk about frustration, knowing that I'd wasted all these people's times and it took me way too long just to get the network running to where they could all use the stations that I had put together in front of them, that the frustration levels were very high that day.
Pressure's on, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, mine personally I thought was an interesting one. Similar to that, the pressure, the frustration that you say. I mean, frustration is probably another word for anxiety. Man, I had a pretty emotional thing going on in my life, at this time. And it surprised me because, the point here, the long point is how involved technology has become in our life, and it embeds itself in a way that you don't really realize it has. We talk about all these kids can't live without the remote control games in their hands. I think that's largely our whole society and population, as evidence of this situation where emotional things going on in my life, and I'm talking to my friends and trying to work things out. And one particular morning, I dropped my kid off from school, and I went down and reached for my phone, and my phone died. It was just dead, and it wouldn't turn on. And I mean to tell you, the emotion that swarmed over me was shocking to me. The fact that my phone wouldn't turn on and I couldn't do what I felt that I needed or wanted to do at that moment. I flat lost it. I lost it in my car. And I'll never forget that, because it proved to me like how involved this stuff is and how much we rely on really basic things, such as simply being able to place a phone call when I'm driving. I probably should say that I stopped off on the side of the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't, and I was so mad. Craig, how many times does technology drive you nuts?
Man, I don't think there's anything else in the world, in my life, that frustrates me more than technology.
He's my tech guy.
Yeah, but it's like we're talking about earlier, things that should just be so simple sometimes turn into these big, drawn out fiascos. And I graduated from Western Carolina University in '93 with a computer information systems degree, and I made a career out of technology. Right. And the reason I'm in this podcast with you is because I'm a tech guy and have a little bit of knowledge. So, but yeah, it is at times it just absolutely drives me bananas, because something that should be just a simple task is just not a simple task.
Log in.
Yeah, log in. And it seems like it happens more frequently. It seems like to me, and this is just my opinion, and I don't want to sound like a negative guy because I don't consider myself to be that way. But it seems like to me that there's issues more than it works. There's times when it doesn't,
right.
And it's just very frustrating.
That's when we call Adrian and Craig, man.
Yeah,
my father
I've been in technology since '93, and when you told me that Adrian was good at helping people through their technology anxiety issues, I'm like, great, I need to speak to him immediately. What's his number?
Right. So, Adrian, I notice things, I think, in you that have impressed me so much, because everyone's had horrible experiences talking to somebody over the pond in another country, or just all kinds of horror experiences, being on hold and whatever. But then you get somebody on the phone, you calm me down like a lot, and usually pretty instantly. One of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you is because you do that, at least for me personally. And I don't know how much you've identified it in your head, how much is purposeful on your part. How do you do what you do?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the first key to what you're asking about is patience. And I'm sure you see a lot of this in therapy. That it really does take a lot of patience to work through anxiety or any issues that are in front of you. But I think this kind of leads to, if you're interested, I have a list of notes that I use when I'm training a new tech support person. And I'd like you to see in these notes how much they address the psychology of the person on the other end. Are you interested?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. The first one has to do with addressing the customer by name. This can help. I say it. You start the reply with a semi-formal greeting, and no matter how burning the issue is, you take that time and try and keep your tone of voice as calm and almost even kind of quiet as possible, so that they have to listen in. but it's just enough to let them know that you're there to help them, and that you're going to remain calm no matter how upset they may be.
You mind if I jump in from time to time a little bit? Because
no, these are great conversation pieces, each one, if you want to take them one at a time.
Calm is the word, and I highlighted and bolded it out because I circled it. Calm enough to handle the issue. That's, I think people can realize that when they're talking to their mother on the phone or dealing with, honestly, we do that in therapy. A calm tone of voice. It
Otherwise,
de-escalates.
you're pouring fire, or you're pouring gasoline on a fire. Because if you come at an excited, emotional state in their direction, then it's just going to heighten.
Right.
And you just get this escalation on both sides to where nobody can really accomplish anything.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
The next step, I always make sure that we thank the customer. Thank them for taking the time to come to you for help. It helps them feel valid and understand that their thoughts are welcome in the conversation as well.
Thanking people. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now in step 3, we actually handle the problem, address the question that the customer had, and also try and make sure you answer all the questions. If there were multiple ones involved, it's real important to not skip any. Otherwise, you make them feel like you didn't really focus on them and handle all their problems.
And what's funny, you're making me think about a situation, questions being asked and fully addressing their issue and what they're dealing with. I remember a specific situation. I guess I'm a little bit brave in computer worlds and stuff, and some people in my family aren't. My brother-in-law particularly was at my house one time. Hey, Eric, I wonder if you're listening to the show. Anyway, they wanted me to go through and do something, and my father-in-law looked at me and he's like, hey, Chris, slow down. And I didn't think I was going very fast. I mean, I just clicked and moved and did this and that. Of course, patience has always been something I tried to improve in myself because I need a lot of improvement. People know me, know that. And I've just flashed back to that interlude, Adrian, when you're talking about that, being patient and answering their questions and realizing kind of what's going on within that person's mind. You're talking about customers, but I want to point out when you're talking to your family members or you're talking to a friend or something's going on, it's kind of like, whoa, slow down. What's your problem? What's your question? What's going on? These are things that you can talk about as customers. I'm thinking about as people that we know.
Yeah, and dealing with people can be even more difficult than people you don't know, because when you already have a relationship with them, there are times when they may react to your running them through this structure. I'm going through this structured list of things to do, and if you do that with someone don't patronize me is what comes back. Yes, right. I've done that. And that's kind of like the next question, which is don't lead the witness with yes or no questions like, did you reboot the computer? Because if you ask it like that, they're going to always say yes, because they don't want to feel stupid, even if they didn't do it. They will say yes, and so now you're off in the bad direction where they actually didn't do what you assume they did as a tech support person. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I say things like, instead of asking, did you reboot the computer, I say things like, hey, let's reboot the computer now. And then if they already had, then A, they don't feel stupid because you didn't belittle them while you're asking the question, and B, they'll tell you. They'll say, well, I did already reboot it, and the problem still happens.
See, so my suspicion was correct, Aiden. You're very purposeful about tending to the emotions of this person you're working with.
You absolutely have to. There are 2 problems to address. You have to address the problem that they're experiencing with their technology, and you have to address the frustration that they're dealing with, because it is as big an issue as the problem itself.
Craig, I told you he's an all-star.
Yeah, that sounds great. Those are good points. Very good points. I've been in tech support roles myself, and those are excellent things.
So, before as you go on there, Adrian, Craig, I'm curious. Adrian, you're talking about this as honestly tech support specific training that you have, right? Craig, have you ever had tech support specific training? Like,
I've been in tech support roles. I in the beginning of my career, I was help desk on the trading floor for a big bank in Charlotte, and I think we had training in how to help people and fix issues and those kind of things, but not like Adrian's talking about. It's very interesting that you had customer kind of interaction training, if you will, or what did you call it, Adrian?
Oh, this is just training our tech support people.
Yeah, I think
impressive.
That's a great idea. Yeah, to calm people down or to maybe put people at ease. Maybe is a better way to say it. But I don't ever recall having that kind of training, and I've done a couple of different support roles in my time.
Yeah,
over my career.
Hats off to who'd you say you're with, right? Deliver Plus, man. That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong.
Well, and this is just like you were talking about earlier, from just 25 years of experience, putting together this program for new hires when we have new people coming in. The next step is actually strictly going after addressing the underlying emotions of the customer. And this can be done at the beginning as well. Like if someone calls and says, "Hey, my computer's not working," and you might just start out with to say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm sure that is really frustrating, especially this time of day." And so if you address the anger or frustration, and acknowledge it in such a way that the customer realizes, yeah, it is okay to be frustrated, and as long as I'm here to help, and we'll get through this together.
I love it. It's really good. I'm just thinking back of probably a week or two. I got another example of technology anxiety, getting ready to present to a group of men that I meet with, and I'm literally said one sentence of what I was going to begin talking about, and my computer just flat stopped. And I think I called you, Adrian.
Yeah, the web meeting.
Right. Do you remember what you said?
No.
Yeah, I said, I turned my machine on and the screen is blue and
the blue screen of death.
The blue screen of death.
And then I got back on and finally cooled my computer down. And Craig, do you remember what you said to me?
With the blue screen of death?
Yes.
Yeah. If anybody's listening and has Windows, they've probably seen the blue screen of death at least once in their life.
Talk about anxiety, man. Y'all are telling me death, the blue screen of death.
That's what it's called.
It was scary to me.
That was so funny. I was on that call, and it's just funny how technology or things like that work out. So Chris is on the video call, and he says, and I would say...
Is that where I dropped off?
Yeah, right there. I would say, and then he was gone. It was.
Oh, that's perfect timing.
And so we're all sitting there like, where'd Chris go? And a little bit later, I sent him a text. We proceeded with the call, and he's like, I got real issues, and evidently they were really bad if he called Adrian.
Well, there was the blue screen of death.
Yeah, right.
Now, I've got one more in my tech support training that I thought was kind of pertinent to this show, and this is actually the biggest and hardest. And that is, don't take insults personally. And I'm talking again of the tech support person on the side who's receiving these insults from the customer.
Right.
Because it is very common when people get very frustrated, they'll take it out on whoever's in front of them. And that, of course, is the tech support person who's trying to help them. Now, it doesn't accomplish anything to insult them, but it's very common. And it's also very difficult to deal with, because a lot of us are personally invested in the work that we do. And so when you insult the item we're trying to sell or deal with, you're insulting us directly. I personally hate the word glitch. I don't know what it is, but people always say there's a glitch in the system.
Oh, wow.
And there's something about that word, the connotations behind it. I don't know, it sounds like witch or bitch or whatever you want to call about it, but that's what it ends up being in my view.
You don't want to be that.
Same thing with a bug or, it's just hard to not take it personally. And but when you're in tech support, it's key. You have to put it behind you. You have to say, okay, they're frustrated with what's in front of them now, not you personally.
And, it's cool that you're talking about it in that way, because this is a show about emotional experiences and how do you grow with emotional experiences. And, there is such a personal touch to the technology that we interact with. And you really do have a tendency to take things personally when you buy something and it doesn't work. You've got a subscription and you can't even access it. It's like, oh, these people are trying to screw me. Somebody's trying to take advantage of me. So this computer, I swear it's got a name, and I won't say it on the air, is messing with me. and we name things with technology. We name our cars, and my son's car name is Cinderella. He loves it. You develop such a relationship with your technology. Our experiences emotionally are huge. And Adrian, it's hard not to take things personally.
Yeah. Kind of like you were talking about names. The industry I'm in is a POS system. That stands for point of sale. But of course, most people call it a piece of what.
It is absolutely
That's funny.
Schnitz.
Yeah, I think some of the anxiety and emotion that comes with technology issues is the urgency of the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to work doing tech support for the bank in Charlotte, I was talking about I was working on the trading floor, and so these guys are dealing with lots and lots of money. Client money. Some guys were managing the bank's money, that kind of thing. And when they had computer issues, man, I mean, there was a lot of dollars on the line a lot of times.
Pressure.
So yeah, they would curse us out, as tech support guys, and call it, like Adrian is talking about, not taking things personally. I mean, you had to deal with a lot of that as a tech support guy in that kind of environment. That was it's kind of funny because my first job was at a small hospital. And you might have heard somebody say the S word or the D word under their breath. But, man, you would get cursed out on that trading floor. And I'd always joked that I'd died and gone to hell when I took that job.
Right. It's funny because I guess, Adrian, particularly you who are receiving a lot of calls and working with people, I think the thing that we need to realize, if I were to add to your tech support list, honestly, as a tech support person, but more importantly for the audience, as a person, you got to realize that you are in an elevated state of emotion before you even get on the phone with that tech person. And I have purposely called some of you guys and said, well, all right, slow down. Just treat this one step at a time. I love what you said earlier, Adrian, about, simplify it. I just need this to go this way. But, Craig, you just talked about something I hadn't thought about, urgency. Was it last time we talked about trauma? Or we've talked about trauma a couple times, particularly episode 4 with elevated
energy state.
Emotion. Energy. Dude, I am on fire when I'm calling you guys. On fire. And you're going to try to not take that personally. It needs to start right from the first moment because I am urgently on fire. And I didn't think about that when...
Yeah, you're absolutely at an elevated state because you got something you need to do right away. And now the technology is not cooperating with you, and you're pissed.
And I've already waited 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Elevating my own emotion. So one of the things that I think I would suggest for the audience as a result of our back and forth is you have to really execute emotion management before you even begin to deal with the technical problem to calm yourself down.
Yeah, I agree.
De-escalate.
I think you're 100% spot on. And I think these are great things that Adrian's teaching his support staff and that he's doing himself personally. But, I guess my next question to Adrian and maybe even you, Chris, the therapist, is what if I'm in a situation where I'm, what does the average Joe do, or a guy like me, or a guy like you, who's sitting here admitting that we get to these elevated emotional states when we're dealing with this technology that's not working? What can we do if there's no tech guy? If it's just us trying to figure something out to bring ourselves back down? And maybe it's some of the things we've talked about in previous shows, but a lot of times there's no guy on the other side. It's just me sitting here pulling my hair out, about to throw this thing out the window because it's not doing what I want it to do.
Adrian, let me give an answer, and then I want to throw it over to you to finish all that off, because what you're making me think about, Craig, when you say that is our responsibility to we talked about mindfulness, to quiet our mind, to get into the moment, to calm ourselves down. And we'll have a lot of episodes and shows. You talk a lot about breathing, Craig. Honestly, if you don't do that, depending upon what Adrian's going to say in responding, what can normal Joe do when there is no tech support guy? I'm going to tell you that psychologically, emotionally, we know that when you're in an elevated state, your neurons are not firing. You cannot think straight. You get discombobulated. You can't think very well. So you think you're going to solve a complicated technical problem when you can't calm down and think well? Yeah, you're done. You're screwed. So you'll serve yourself better to take a deep breath, walk away from it, maybe a minute, 2 minutes, just stand up, stretch. That might sound trite or silly, but if you stretch, you stand up, you put it down for a minute, maybe you go get a heavy bag, and then you come back to it 5 minutes later, your emotions are de-escalated. I can think now.
That's a great answer. I've done that before. I'll get so wrapped up in the thing that I can't see or think. And, 5 minutes away, get a drink, whatever I do, come back, bam. Oh, there, that was it the whole time. Jeez.
All I had to do was click that button.
Yeah.
Adrian, what are you thinking? What would you say for people that don't have you?
Oh, I think those are all great suggestions. And one other thing that, just stepping back for a moment might help you do is think of alternatives. That is, okay, this computer in front of me's got the blue screen of death. Oh. I can't use it. What can I do? Well, alternatives might be maybe there's another computer down the hall. Maybe it's someone else's, but maybe they'll let you use it for a moment just to get your task done. Or depending on the task, let's say you're ordering something online or you're trying to get a hold of somebody. Maybe you want to forget about the computer and call them on your phone instead. Because alternatives can really get you around problems quite quickly as opposed to taking the time to truly fix the problem. Then when you get the time that the urgency's gone, when you can actually relax and take care of it directly or get a hold of someone who is in tech support, then you might be able to handle it in a more mindful manner.
I think alternatives, Adrian. That's a great example, I think, and I'll give you an example that I use on my on my own computer. I'm a Mac guy, and I use Mac Mail on my computer, and I use a Gmail account, so I've got my Mac Mail hooked into my Gmail, and I've only got 4 megs of memory on this machine. So a lot of times, man, it takes it a while to pull up Mac Mail. For some reason, my Mac Mail just sometimes doesn't perform. So if I'm in a situation where I've got to get an email quickly or get something out quickly, and Mac Mail is not cooperating, I'll just hit Safari or Chrome or my browser and log into Google Mail that way and complete that task.
Right.
And then later on, Mac Mail will catch up and it'll be fine. But that happens especially a lot of times when I'm just starting the computer up because everything's starting up in the background and that kind of thing. So I'll use an alternative, the Google Mail through the browser to accomplish my task. And at the end of the day, I'm not in that emotional elevated state that we keep talking about.
Emotion elevated state, yeah. I think we're naturally transitioning, Adrian, a little bit. Do you have some ideas that you can help everyone with when sort of on the other end of it? I guess we're the customers, right? Is that what you're calling us? I'm a customer.
Absolutely.
What can we do, man?
If you're the customer looking for help from tech support, there are some really good things that can help move the process along pretty quickly. The first one, as we talked about, is to try and take a moment and calm down and recognize the state of mind that you're in. And if you are frustrated to the point where you can't function, then give yourself that moment to get to where you can function before you contact. Or maybe if you know it's going to be a 10-minute on hold before you get someone to help, then take that 10 minutes to just relax. Do your best to relax. The next thing I like to recommend is having as much information as you can. A lot of times people will call and say, it doesn't work. And that really doesn't say anything. It means everything to you, but it doesn't mean anything to the person on the other end.
It's
because
broken.
There are a whole lot of it's out there. And so when I say it doesn't work, why don't we redirect that to say, okay, I'm trying to use Skype, and when I try and log in, it's telling me the account doesn't exist. But then when I do log in, it tells me the account already exists. And I keep going back and forth, and I can't get logged in. And so if you have the error message, or if you have the specific issue that's before you, and in this day and age with, cell phones where you can take a picture of the problem, they help so much just in understanding what the customer is actually having. So if you can do those kinds of things, they really help. It also helps to not hide information. A lot of times people realize, yeah, I messed up. And if you hide the fact that you dropped your cell phone in the toilet, then that's pretty important information for the tech guy on the other side. So don't hide information, even if it's something that makes you look not so great.
Just jump in real quick there, Adrian. You're making me think of people when they go to see their medical doctor. Why do you think maybe we hide things? Is it possibly the technology? If we're really getting to it, and I would challenge people in the audience listening to this show to think about this. Do you feel ashamed of yourself? Do you feel shame that I can't do this, or that this thing is better than me, or I'm stupid in some way? Stupid me.
There's definitely some of that, I think, and Adrian probably has some examples too. But one comes to mind when you say that. I remember a guy who called us one day and said his keyboard wouldn't work, and so I think another guy took the call. But he goes over there and he's trying to figure out what's going on and with the keyboard, and he finally figures out that it's soaked. It's got the guy had dumped a cup of water into the thing, but he felt like an idiot for doing it and didn't want to tell the guy what had happened. Yeah, So
don't hide that information. It's
right.
actually very important.
Yeah, it could have been an easy fix. Hey, I dumped a cup of water in my keyboard. Will you bring me a new one? And the thing would have been over in 30 seconds. But, the guy spent time trying to figure out what was going on because the guy was too ashamed to tell him he had dumped his water in the thing.
Shame's a powerful motivator. I think that, Adrian, you said don't hide it. I just went towards that. I know people, we tend to feel a lot of stupidity and shame, and you're battling that with the call or the person you're working with.
And that's real crucial too. Like when you say the person already feels somewhat shameful, and so that makes it hard for the tech support side, because a lot of times just about anything we say makes the customer feel stupid or
belittled,
put down,
maybe belittled. Right.
It's real easy for that kind of thing to happen in a natural conversation, especially if the person who's doing the tech support actually does it in a condescending way, which some do. And that just makes it so much worse. You're talking about pouring gasoline on a fire. It just escalates the problems. Rather than reversing it and, say, yeah, I understand. I've dropped Pepsi into my keyboards before and they don't work after that.
Yeah, and it's tough on the tech guy too, because normally when people call them, they're in that elevated state, and they might be calling the guy names and that's like the compound trauma thing, man. People keep doing that to you, and eventually you get into a negative state.
Ooh, burnout for tech people. Yeah,
and tech people, like you said, can become condescending, and just because they're constantly dealing with people who are having problems and calling them, and there's tension there. They want their stuff fixed right away, and
it ends up being a battle.
It's a tough job on both sides.
I didn't thought about that.
You're already ticked off because your computer's not working, and the guy that you're calling's ticked off because he's dealt with 15 other people like you today.
Wow.
And he's had it.
Calm down, everybody. Adrian, finish us off with what we can do.
The next one is be patient. That is obvious, but unfortunately it's not so easy to do. A lot of times when you're calling tech support, they've got this form in front of them they have to go through. And even if you've done everything on the form, they may make you go through it again. and just go ahead and do that. Just do it with them. It really helps move along to the next step. If you fight them on it and say, I've already done this, I don't want to do it again, the result is you just create this adversarial relationship rather than a mutual one where together we're trying to solve this problem.
Right.
And so that's kind of like be open to the things that you've already done, to be open to do them again, just to help make sure that the person on the other end can move on to their next step.
To add on there too, I have found that, it's a simple communication technique. Now, I think we're all communicating just fine right here because we're not really in an elevated state. That's a big piece when you can almost be traumatized by your technology, honestly, with all this emotion flying around. It helps when you're feeling elevated and you're feeling angry or frustrated or shameful or guilty. Use short, simple phrases that helps you to get oriented to the situation with just a simple, small, short phrase. Less is best, some would say. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's all part of narrowing things down, also, because if you can make it a short, simple description of what the problem is, you get to the solution faster. The longer you drone on about the things that happened last week that are unrelated just delays the answer.
Switching gears a little bit, but beginning to kind of close to wrapping up today. So commonly I hear people sort of daydream back to the days of long ago where, we didn't have technology, life was slower, we didn't have these worries we thought, we were just more relaxed and in the moment, riding our horse to town or, having 7 channels on the TV to look for. Let's just think out loud for a minute. Kind of get your guys' general or genuine sense about this. Because technology also gets a little bit of a bad rap. I'll foreshadow just a sec. Do we really want to go back to those days to where technology hadn't really progressed to where it is now? Do we really want that?
I love technology. I love the power and excitement that the future brings. And when you think about those days, yeah, they were simpler, but you know what else? They didn't have options. Yeah. Back in those days, you didn't have the food down the street that you could just go and order so easily. Yeah, there was that one place, but there weren't 30. Now you have 30 choices. You could go get a coffee, but you couldn't have the half-calf frappuccino, all the other options with cinnamon and mocha twist. That's kind of what technology is giving us, is just options on top of options. And yeah, it does add to the complication of things, but it makes us able to get more what we want.
Yeah, I agree with Adrian. I think that technology is a great thing. It frustrates me a lot. We talked about the frustration and the elevated emotional levels, but I mean, look at us. We're sitting here around my kitchen table,
right,
recording a podcast on a computer that's going to be globally available in a couple of weeks. I think that's a good thing.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, I do think
you didn't have to have a publicist or a contract with some other company that took years to accomplish. You're doing it yourself directly.
Exactly. And we're able to get the word out through social media and other places. So we're like a little. Our own little radio show, if you will, and we can do that with technology out of the comfort of our own home here. And so, I think things like technology detoxes and unplugging and that kind of thing is probably a good idea. But overall, I think technology is great. I mean, you can do a lot with it. It's made huge improvements in our lives. And I think it is a good thing, Chris. I do. There's some scary stuff about the future. I'm excited about the future, like Adrian said he was.
Right.
But with the AI and some other things we've talked about, it's kind of, there's some scary stuff out there too. But no, I don't want to go back to the 30s or whatever it was when we, didn't have any of the stuff we have now.
Yeah, like how long did it take Paul Revere to get really important words out to his countrymen?
Yeah.
On that day.
Yeah, he had to ride a horse around.
Or that week. Or I don't know, I'm not a history buff. Was it that month?
Yeah, I don't know either, but you can send a tweet out in 30 seconds now and reach the whole globe.
Boom. I mean, It is. It just occurred to me as I was just sort of checking in with the way I was feeling as we're talking, Adrian and Craig, and it really does create anxiety. I feel like from a therapist's perspective, through my eyes, I see us needing to adjust to change, and the more that we can tolerate the simple, as you say, Adrian, focus on the changes that are important to you, not all the changes in the farming industry and space and technology and stuff we're not interested in. But if we can sit back and challenge ourselves, tolerating things that are changing around us, and get real with that, maybe we can decrease some of this technology anxiety that we have that is so prevalent otherwise. Adrian, what kind of conclusion thoughts might you have, putting you and Craig on the spot with technology anxiety, the things that we've been talking about here today? What kind of conclusion thoughts are you kind of arriving at? I guess this last section is where I was kind of arriving.
Well, I think the main point that we hit upon has been being mindful about your state. If you're in an elevated state, then you're probably not going to get a lot accomplished. And so if you can relax, calm down, and realize that the world isn't against you, it's just this one piece of equipment that's not behaving the way you would like it to, then you might be able to work through the problem and get it solved. There is a lot to learn as things are changing so fast, and so give yourself the time and the patience to learn it.
Right. Yep. Craig, you have any kind of conclusion thoughts that have been ringing through your head as we've talked?
I don't think anything's ringing through. I would agree with what Adrian said. And, if you get into one of those elevated states, you may ask yourself, how important is this thing really? The example you gave where you had the blue screen of death there, I mean, it was our mastermind call, and it was something that could have waited till the next week or, wasn't that important. So I'm not sure that getting yourself all into an emotional heightened state was really worth it.
Interesting.
So,
you said talk about the urgency.
Yeah. I mean, is it really a big deal to get this email account set up, or is it really a big deal to log into Skype tonight? Probably it isn't as big as you're making it.
When the electricity turns off, it's not.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'll wrap up with an interesting perspective that I had with somebody that I thought was really interesting, and it was really interesting because this particular person I happen to know for sure has, a real anxiety and a rather severe anxiety experience, and we were talking just about technology, and They said something that made me think of you, Adrian, because I've heard you say this before, and I thought, maybe there's something to this. The idea was they were like, look, I don't get anxious about technical problems. It doesn't bother me that much. I recognize there's a problem. I recognize I need to come up with a solution, and I don't want to let it win. And I've heard you say that, Adrian. I will win. I just need to come up with the right solution in the right time, and I'm going to patiently go through the process to figure out how can I beat this little situation.
That does bring up a kind of nasty fact, and that is a lot of the anxiety is a choice. You're making the choice to let this upset you.
Right.
And a lot of times the thing is important, and it is a valid response, but it is a controllable one if you do not let it control you.
That emphasizes the level of control that we do have. And I often think of the wisdom prayer or the serenity prayer when I think of that. What does it go? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that that's oftentimes used to say, hey, let me accept that stuff I can't make different. But the line also is control the things you can control.
Right.
And your emotion,
yes,
the whole show is predicated on, right? Your emotion is, contrary sometimes to our fear, is it not something we can control?
That's true. Yeah. You can control you. You can't control anything else.
We're trying to figure out, what do we say in the opening of the show?
Figure this thing out together.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? We're going to enjoy technology for many years to come, and it gets a little bit of a bad name. Hopefully people are getting a little bit on how to handle their emotion in lots of different ways, and this is one that we can manage day in and day out and day in and day out as we're interacting with technology. Adrian, I am so appreciative of your time, sir. I'm so appreciative of what you do really for me personally. I'm so appreciative of your perspective, and I really feel like hopefully with the people that have listened here today that you've really done a good deed of service for something that people are dealing with day in and day out. Thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Adrian, don't hang up. We're not sure what's going to happen with this Skype call this recorder if you hang up. So hang on till Chris and I close out. But
we have technical problems.
Appreciate you coming on tonight. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I can probably use some of these takeaways that we've talked about myself in the future. So really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
Coming on here soon, I believe next time. We are going to move into, Craig, I think I alluded last show to marriage issues. I got a marriage model that's going to be really, really dynamically interesting.
Yeah, we got some great shows, I think, coming up. We've got we're working on having another guest who's going to talk about career and jobs and how that plays into mental and emotional health. I think that's going to be a great show, and I'm looking forward to having this gentleman on.
Hopefully will be the next two. We'll see.
Yeah, one of the next two. So we got a lot of good topics coming up. I'm excited about the future of this thing.
Craig, thank you for your technology help. I really appreciate it.
It's a good thing you're a therapist, Chris.
We'll get through this thing together. Guys, thanks for listening. And
before we go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before we go, I just wanted to mention to the audience, if you guys are liking our show, we would appreciate if you would subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Also, if you'll leave us a 5-star review if you're liking our content, and tell your friends. I mean, share this thing word of mouth. We're posting stuff on our Facebook and Instagram. If you wanted to spread the word that way, that would be fantastic. You know, you can find out more information about us. We're including show notes for each show on our website, throughwhatherapistdies.com. You can also find links to Facebook and Instagram on that website if you're looking for us out there. And am I leaving anything out?
No, not really, but just to give my voice to what you voiced last show or show before, comments really are what we're looking for too. And I guess I want to highlight again, Instant Messenger on the Facebook page is a great way to communicate. We will absolutely share that in confidence, and I think mental health is
not
tough.
Share. We will not share your. If you send us a messenger, right, we will not share your identity.
Correct.
I'm afraid a lot of folks are not asking questions just because they don't want to ask a therapy question on a public forum.
We've started to talk about that, yeah, and we'll be very mindful of that. Of course, if you instant message, nobody sees that except for us who receive it. But that hopefully will help people feel more confident, and we'll get some dialogue going.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, thanks, Craig. We'll see you guys next week.